Hello children. This video is for ISC class 12 students who are going to appear for their literature exam on 13th Feb. Yes, in this video I am going to talk to you about how to prepare questions from Reverie and Echoes. That means your books of poetry and prose. Alright. And in this video I am also going to tell you the tactics and techniques that you need to use while writing good answers. All right. So let's begin how to prepare questions from Reverie and Echoes for the exam on 13th Feb 2024. See, if we talk about the exam pattern this time, so there are basically four types of questions which you get from the play The Tempest also, from Reverie also, and from Echoes also. First is the multiple choice question, which you have 1 mark, for each question. You will get 3 MCQs from stories and 3 from poems. All right. So 3 stories and 3 poems are going to be asked in the form of MCQs. Then in reasoning questions, which are again 1 mark each, in which you have to complete a sentence, and for that you need to give a reason. क्योंकि जो sentence होगा it will be left on because, and you have to complete it by using that because only. So that again is for 1 mark. 3 from stories and from poems. Then again you will have to attempt 2 short questions of 5 marks each. 2 short questions you have to do from stories and 2 you have to do from poetry, in which you don't get any choice. So what does it mean? It means that 2 stories are going to be asked as short questions, okay, for as 5 markers. Then again, 1 long question has to be attempted for 10 marks, 1 from the story and 1 from poetry. But now please understand, in this 1 question, you will be given a choice. So this is the only question where you are getting a choice. All right. So in totality, if we talk about, like you are going to get 4 stories and 4 poems. Out of them, 2 stories, compulsory questions for 5 marks, and 2 stories will be asked in the option for 10 marks. Same goes with the poems. Like in total, 4 poems will be asked the questions from, 2 compulsory questions of 5 marks each, and 1 long question which will be optional. Okay, you'll be given a choice in that. Now, the poems that you have in your syllabus are The Darkling Thrush by Thomas Hardy, Birches by Robert Frost, The Dolphins, Dover Beach, and John Brown. Out of these 5 poems, The Dolphins and John Brown has never been there in ISC syllabus earlier. Even if they were in the syllabus, they were not asked in the exam. Okay, so these 2 are considered to be the most important. Please understand that. As far as The Darkling Thrush is concerned, it has already come thrice. Birches was there in 2023. Dover Beach has also been asked twice. Okay, so what I mean to say, like the most important, like it is expected that the council should ask from The Dolphins and John Brown the questions. Okay, if we talk about 5 markers and 10 markers. Now there is something that I want to tell you, which is very important for you from examination point of view, and that is how to write the answers. Like how many points are supposed to be accommodated in an answer? How will it be divided? So if we go through the specimen paper that was released by the council, you will be able to understand that for 5 marks question, please understand at least 3 things, or at least 3 points with example from the text. All right, with example from the text should be given. So if you look at the questions in the specimen paper, you will see that they have asked 3 things. A question can always be a combination of 2 or more questions, right? So in all the questions, whether it is from The Tempest or from stories or from poems, it has been seen that they have asked for at least 3 things in a 5 marks question. From this, we get an idea that at least 3 points are supposed to be given. But whatever points you give, please understand this technique you need to follow. Like it is always point, then you need to evaluate that point, and then you need to give an evidence. So when we say in a 5 marks question, it can be point and evidence. Evidence can also be an example from the text to substantiate the argument or the point that you are giving. All right. Now, one more thing is about the word limit. This time, the council has introduced the word limit to the answers. For a 5 marks question, it is 100 to 150 words. See, now when you are given both the ends, please make sure that you are able to write, you are able to accommodate all 3 points which are given in this word limit only. For that, you need to answer the question directly. You do not talk about here and there. Please don't give any unnecessary details. Just begin your answer with what is asked. All right. आप सीधा उसी के बारे में बात करेंगे, ना आपको ऑथर के बारे में बात करने की जरूरत है, ना आपको कोई और चीजों के बारे में बात करने की जरूरत है. आपके जो भी 3 पॉइंट्स आप फॉर्मुलेट करते हो कि इस क्वेश्चन में ये 3 पॉइंट्स मुझे आने चाहिए, या जो 3 बातें क्वेश्चन में पूछी गई हैं, आप डायरेक्ट उन्हीं के ही आंसर कीजिए. But yes, again and again, I am reminding you that you need to substantiate those points with examples from the text. All right. That way also you will find, like from the specimen paper, you can easily make out that these 5 markers are the questions which are asking you something about the happenings in the story or in the poem, what all has been given in the text. Okay, they are not much opinion based questions. These are the questions like uh, about the occurrences that take place in the story, or about what all has the poet said in the poem, right? But as far as 10 marks question are concerned, now please understand, in a 10 marks question, basically they are thematic questions, means they are either based on the theme or on the character. Okay, so if they are based on the theme or the character, so here you can also see that they are more opinion based question in which the candidate has to think and write. Okay, the candidate is supposed to give his or her opinion about that particular incident or the character that has been asked or the theme. It can also be about some literary device, like for example from the story of an art, if you are asked about the irony, it can be about some imagery. If for example from the story Fritz, you can be asked about the use of suspense, use of supernaturalism, the way it has been presented, like the way imagery has been presented in any story or poem. All right. So 10 marks questions are like that. Now, for these 10 marks questions, you have to understand that you have to write 200 to 250 words. Correct? So this is 200 to 250 words. So again, here I would say that you will give at least 4 to 5 points. I always tell my students to give at least 4 to 5 points with examples and textual code. So this is how, these are the things which you need to keep in mind while you prepare your answers. Now let's talk about the important questions. Now I'm going to give you a list of questions. If you prepare those questions, so I think more or less you are able to cover the entire story or the poem. So the first poem is The Darkling Thrush by Thomas Hardy. Now, this is a list of questions which I have given. If you prepare these questions properly, then I think that the language may vary, but more or less the questions are going to ask about these things only. First is the describe bleak picture of the day as described by the poet. This bleak picture of the day somehow is reflective of his nature, because he was also hopeless at that time. He was dejected and dismayed. So, if you prepare like the explanation of the first 2 stanzas that have been given by the poet, so you will be able to answer this question. Then, how does this atmosphere suddenly change? The atmosphere suddenly changes when he hears the song of the thrush. All right. So, there you need to describe, and you also need to explain the opinion of the narrator when he hears the song of the thrush. All right. Then what are the poet's feelings at the end of the poem? We know that the poem ends on the note of hopefulness. Okay. So somehow he imagines, he realizes that there is some blessed hope which the thrush is aware of and he himself is not. Okay, so he becomes optimistic by the end of the poem. So that has to be given as an answer here. Then there is a gradual shift from gloomy despair to sense of hopefulness discussed. Now the fourth question is actually the combination of the first 3 questions. right? So if you prepare these 4 questions, you will be able to answer any 5 marker or 10 marker that comes from this poem. Now, the second poem is Birches by Robert Frost. Of course, Birches, which talks about the movements, the upward movement, which is for the illusion or fantasy or imagination, and the downward movement when while swinging you come downwards, that is about the reality. So these 3 questions are most important. When I say them most important, because they cover the almost the whole poem. All right, explain how the birch tree becomes a vehicle to transcend from the harsh realities of the world to the imaginary world of peace. Birches is a nostalgic celebration of youthful joy while also juxtaposing childish spontaneity with the more serious, mundane realities of adulthood. Comment. Then Robert Frost's Birches is a nostalgic celebration of youthful joy. Alright. Now, third poem, The Dolphins, which I told you will be coming for the first time in these board exams. So you can do these 3 questions. Discuss the poem as a reflection on the themes of oppression, control, and confinement of animals by man. Draw the contrast between the dolphins' present confinement with their earlier freedom. The dolphin, though written from the perspective of dolphins, captures the voice of all animals who are entrapped, abused, and exploited by the human beings discussed. All right. So now here you see the first and third question are opinion-based thematic questions because they are based on the themes. While the second question is from the text. Okay, what all has been given by the poet. Now the next is Dover Beach by Matthew Arnold. So these are the questions which you should definitely do, like describe the moonlit scene as described by the poet at the beginning of the poem. How does the poet introduce the note of melancholy and disturbance? In this context, what does he say about faith? What does the poet say about the world in which he finds himself? With reference to the poem, discuss Arnold's stance on global modernization. How is the image of sea used both as a physical or metaphorical presence in the poem? Now, next is John Brown by Bob Dylan. Somehow, children find it very easy. But these 3 are the main areas which have to be covered, all right, to give good answers. First is the how does the poem ridicule the idealization of war? Then the soldiers who fight on the battlefield are pawns in the hands of those who glorify war for their own interest. Discuss this statement with reference to the poem. And last is bring out the irony used in the poem John Brown. Now, if we talk about the stories, children, so we have these 5 stories: Fritz, the story of an hour, the singing lesson, quality, and B. Wordsworth. Out of these 5, Fritz and quality, these 2 are the stories which will be asked for the first time in ISC exam. Otherwise, the story of an hour, the singing lesson, and B. Wordsworth have already been asked. All right. So, now, while preparing this story, please understand we need to know the background of the story and even of the poem if it has some autobiographical element in it. Then you should know about all the themes, setting of the story. When we say setting of the story, it means which is the place where the story has been set, where the action of the story takes place. Then it can be about the weather also, what time of the day it is. All right. If any specific thing was happening at that time, like does it belong to Victorian era, 19th century, 20th century, you know, because out of see, these 2 stories, the story of an hour and the singing lesson, they are about women, role of women in society, all right, and especially in marriage. So the story of an hour talks about 19th century, while the singing lesson talks about 20th century. All right. So to form an opinion, you need to know the background. You need to know the setting. You need to know the themes. Then only you will be able to form your own opinion and write good answers. All right. Answers are not always about what is given in the text. Sometimes you need to think out of the box from those occurrences of the text. Okay. And you are asked such questions in which you need to give your opinion. Now look at the questions. The first story, Fritz, describe how memory plays an important role in the story. Compare and contrast the characters of Shankar and Jayanto. How does the use of suspense and imagery add to the element of horror in the story? Comment on the ending of the story. Okay, so if you prepare these four questions elaborately, then you will be able to answer any question which comes from this story. Then the story of an hour. The story does not trace Louis's repression, but her reaction to her husband's death says it all. Discuss. Second is give an account of the thoughts and feelings which go through Mrs. Mallard's mind when she hears about the untimely and sudden death of her husband. And third is what do you conclude by the struggles and challenges faced by women in the 19th century from the story? Now, the singing lesson. Describe how the lesson as it progresses becomes an echo of Mrs. Meadows' feelings. Then describe the interaction between Miss Meadows and the science mistress. Comment on Miss Meadows' behavior. How does a change in mood of Miss Meadows affect her music lessons? Elaborate on that. How is a working woman in the 20th century presented in the story? All right. Next is quality. These are the two things which are mainly prevalent in the story. One is the character sketches, which you need to prepare for Mr. Gessler as well as the narrator. Two characters are there. Then, what are the hardships faced by the true artisans in the commercialized world? Answer with reference to the story. Then we have B. Wordsworth. Describe the interaction between B. Wordsworth and the young narrator. What did the narrator learn from his friend? Do you feel that B. Wordsworth was an escapist? Yes, escapism is one of the most important themes of this story, and you should definitely read about it. The story explores an unusual friendship between an old man and a boy. Discuss. How does Nepal contrast two modes of life, the modern and traditional, in his story? How is poetry intertwined in it? All right. So these are all the questions which I feel that if you prepare from all these stories and poems, you will be able to benefit yourself, and you will be covering the entire story and the poem before while doing these questions, and you will be able to do and you will be able to write your answers really good. If you have any queries, if you have any questions to ask, you can always put them in comment box. All right. So that's all for today. Thank you so much. Kindly like, share, and subscribe my channel. Bye bye.